probably the last maybe 2 hours here, and I'm really on a roll. But I want to share with you today that as a knowledge professional or some kind of professional services, how you can multiply the value of your time without increasing the burden of hours. So I know a lot of you guys are already working 50, 60 hours a week. Some of you are working even more. I've heard cases where you're kind of burned out and frustrated because during COVID you were busting your ass, but then after COVID they let you go and you've been trying to get another job together, or you got another job together, or you're doing freelance stuff, but you still don't have the time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Now, I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, and you guys know we talk about political stuff. We talk about a lot of different things. When you're not enjoying the fruits of your labor, or at least utilizing the intelligence that you have, there is this desire to just have something given to you, and I want to show you how that's not very valuable. In fact, the best position to be in is when you have more work than you have time to deliver the work. However, to make that function without you burning yourself out, without you having stress, without you getting a giant ass gut or going primitive, is to know how to delegate. So we're going to talk about delegation, the value of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and the other aspects that is really part of our strategic relationship approach. So I teach the win-win-win. You need to win, the client needs to win, and their customer needs to win. Well, in this situation where you have more work than time in the day, the first thing you want to make sure you're doing is prioritizing the work. Very often, I hear people say, I've got all this work and I'm so busy. And then when I talk to them, it turns out they're spending a lot of time on YouTube. They're spending a lot of time on social media. So the duration of the work is big and it's impacting their personal life and the things that they want to do. But the actual activity of work they're doing is very small. So in an interview and research around executives, the typical executive gets 45 minutes of productive work done each day. They might be in the office for 10 or 12 hours. They might be commuting back and forth for a couple hours, but they get, by their own assessment, 45 minutes of productive work done each day. Now, if they're getting paid $1 million a year and the company's okay with 45 minutes of productive work, then that work is extremely valuable. It's what they talk about in the 80-20 book that I reviewed a while back. I could probably put a link below. But again, they're doing $10,000 an hour work. So if you spend your whole day, whether it's 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours or 15 hours or 23 hours, and you're only spending a fraction of that time doing $10,000 an hour work, then what you've really done is dilute your wages the rest of the way. Now, if you're a salaried worker, maybe you're a knowledge worker, a professional in an office, and you're working on a salary, there's an incentive for the company to make you work more hours than 40 because you got hired based on a 40-hour window. You took the $150,000 a year they offered you and you divide it by 2,080, and that's your hourly rate. And then they only made it better when they talked about vacation and other stuff like that because they know you're probably not going to take the vacation. You're probably going to rush a weekend vacation here and there. You're going to take an extra day off here and there when you have a medical appointment. But if you had the lifestyle in the health that comes with that, you'd take vacation and enjoy it. You wouldn't need the medical days because you would be more healthy over time. So delegation is important. Also, making sure that you're doing the high value work is important as well. Now, 80% of your day should be $1,000 an hour or better work. Now you're saying, Justin, well, I only get paid $55 an hour. I only get paid $65 an hour, maybe $80 an hour. Now I know a lot of folks that are watching this today don't get paid any of that stuff. They're down there with they're fighting for a $15 living wage. Well, let me tell you something. That at the bottom there will never be enough money to earn a living. There'll never be enough, because again, those who know how to earn are going to earn, and they're going to be able to afford more expensive products and services. So companies are going to provide more expensive products and services, and now the prices in general will go up because there's less incentive to create products for the bottom. And now the products at the bottom are going to be the Dollar Tree, the dollar store, and they're going to be cheap products. They're not going to have good life to it. So you'll be paying money and then paying money again and then paying money again because the products are going to wear out. Where somebody who earns more is going to go to be able to buy a good quality pair of shoes and they'll use it for a year or 2 years, or even shoes that can be reconditioned. So it doesn't really matter how much money you make. You always want to be doing the value of work higher than what you're earning. So if you're earning $15 an hour right now and you gain the skills to be worth to a company $100 an hour, then they're either going to have to pay you more or you'll qualify to work for a company that'll pay you more. So if you're producing $100 an hour in value, they can easily pay you $25 to $50 an hour. Okay? So when I talk about making $200,000 a year and $300,000 a year, I do have clients and I have subscribers who are in that category, but they are no different than you. They have to produce a multiple of the value that they get paid in order to stay at that job, because the company is actively looking to lay those folks off. So if your gross total compensation is $300,000, you need to produce for that company $900,000, $1 million a year in value. I pride myself on delivering to companies. One year I delivered $100 million in value to that organization. Okay. Did I get paid $100 million? No. But it guaranteed they weren't going to let me go. That when they had to go down the list of people to let go, they weren't going to let me go. Now, if you're delegating low value work or low dollar work, now this is not a judgment on the value of the individual doing the work. If the work only produces $50 an hour and they're going to pay you $50 an hour to do it, someone will figure out that they can't afford to pay you to do the work. So you need to automate it, delegate it, outsource it, or otherwise don't do the work. So, one of the reasons why people are fighting over a living wage and there's all this minimum wage talk is because a company just can't hire somebody off the street and have them do the work that only produces $10 in value but needs to get done. They can't just hire somebody for $5 to do that work, or $3 or $2 to do that work. They got to take that job overseas where they can pay somebody $2 an hour in US dollars to do work that produces $10 US dollars an hour results, but absolutely has to be done. So again, let me share my background so you understand where I'm coming from. I do operational risk management, which includes business process optimization. So we do look at how much does it cost to execute this leg. So you'll have a business process that'll be like a flow chart. And then each leg, how much does it cost to do this leg? Can we automate it? Can we make it systematic? Can we not do it? Is it tied to a law, rules, or regulation? Does it even have to be done? And so if you can look at your individual day like that, what you'll very often find is that in 8 hours, you can do a lot of productive work. And so if in an 8-hour period, you're doing 4 hours of $1,000 an hour work, and you're doing 2 hours of $10,000 an hour work, and then the rest of the time is like, $2 an hour work, you can actually figure out ways of not doing the $2 an hour work. You can get an assistant at work. So I've been in an officer level roles. I've supported directors. I've done the work for executives and directors because at my pay grade, it was more efficient and effective for me to do the work because I'm a subject matter expert. I want you to look for those opportunities in your business because I can give you examples. I won't name specific companies, but I helped migrate some data centers. And once the data center was migrated and automated, they laid off 20 IT workers. They didn't need them anymore. We were paid to eliminate our positions. Now I know some places are going to tell you that you need to be strategic and you need to make sure you're invaluable, and that's construed as messing everything all up so that you can stay in the job, so that you're the only one that knows how anything works. Where people like me are advocating process diagrams and process workflows, documenting procedurals, identifying the value of the work you're doing and finding ways of packaging it or doing it differently so that you get more value out of it or it costs less. There's far more of us, or as far as impact is concerned, than there are people dicking around and wasting time because they're hourly rate. So again, I've heard the comments, well, I'm getting paid by the hour, I can just do it. Now you're a salary worker and you got the same mentality that you can take a long time to get things done. But the more hours you take to get the work done, the more it dilutes your hourly rate. So if you're working 3,000 hours a year, but you're getting paid for 2,080 hours, then your rate has diluted. So you're better off served working as a contractor with a straight rate where you get paid for every hour you work, or you get overtime depending on how they set up that kind of contract. Working through an agency, for example, because you can still do high dollar work through an agency. But ultimately, if you're working 60 hours a week or 4,000 hours a year and your family is suffering, then not only do you have the embarrassment and the loss of diluting your rate to even half of your original rate, because again, there's taxes, okay? And so that take home is the same size, but you're working more hours. So for every hour you work, you get less take home. And you got the cost and frustration of your family not even knowing who you are and being, and divorce problems, stress problems, everything. You're either going to internalize that and gain a bunch of weight, like I did in 2021. And I'm being honest with you. I'm being very transparent. 2021 was the end of the COVID. Okay. I had some medical problems. I wasn't getting out and exercising. I was working long hours. I was frustrated. I gained 30 pounds. It took my doctor to say to me, hey, what's going on? You gained 30 pounds and you got a heart condition and you have all these frustrations. Now, I know that disclosing these things are going to make it harder for me to get employment work because a lot of employers do care about your health in the sense that they don't want sick employees. But again, they're manufacturing sick employees, so ultimately it's chaos. The objective of our newsletter, Inside Strategic Relations, is to help you think better. So if in 80 hours a week you can do $1,000 an hour work, that's $80,000 in value to the corporation. They need to either compensate you so that you can outsource or delegate home activities like mowing the grass or laundry services. And we've talked about this in other programs. There's a lot of things around the house that could improve your quality of life. So let's say, and I'm just going to throw this out here. Let's say you're a male and your wife is at home and she has to take care of the kids and do the laundry and all that stuff. And she doesn't get paid for it, but it's like $70,000, $80,000 of value a year. Wouldn't it be nice for you to be able to earn so that you can free up their time? So now your wife is now a household manager instead of a household servant. And this goes all different ways. One spouse is at home. It could be the husband. It could be the wife. But I want you to understand from an emotional perspective the social pressure that happens if that person at home feels like they're the household slave and then they're hearing from the news that this isn't right and the patriarchy and all this stuff. You as a man are not going. It's not going to work better having that stress. However, if you're able to delegate, understand the value of your time, focus your effort on meaningful activities, make yourself indispensable for a company because you're generating revenue, then when you cut back to a 40-hour week or even a 50-hour week, you've already paved the road for that relationship. So again, we talk about relationships here. Relationships between individuals are for investment and equity value. Okay? We're not trying to make money off of our family relationships. We're trying to make a life, an emotional connection, things that money can't buy. But if you're spending all your time chasing dollars in a workplace that is using you up like a resource, then these other things will suffer, and there is no money in the world. You could earn millions and millions of dollars a year, and it's not going to fix the relationship with your partner, your spouse, your husband, your wife, whatever the situation is not going to get better. Another factor to consider that it's easier to raise a good child or a child that has good behaviors than it is to fix a broken man or a woman. Okay, you've got to understand this. A lot of my subscribers they tend to be libertarian, conservative. They tend to be neoliberal. Their political aspects are that it's better to conserve resources. It's better to take care of our environment. It's better to build good people rather than fix broken people. And you may not see the connection in the workplace or overworking, and you may only be experiencing it yourself. You could be internalizing this with weight gain, with stress-related illnesses, with being sick unusual amount of times, or even sudden death. None of those situations are as beneficial as being able to properly manage your schedule so that you can make sure you're taking care of your family. Now, again, it's only a stopgap if you earn enough money to have maybe housekeeping and services, and then spending more quality time with your family. And I think the reason I gave this example is because you can look at the dollar value of your time at work and focus on high dollar value activities that reduces your chance of getting laid off and increases your security. But at home, you don't have that monetary measure. So it might be better that when you get home, you can spend quality time with your children, working through their school materials, quiet time with your partner or spouse to build that a relationship connection, that emotional connection, but at least get quality sleep so that you're not irritable and having other challenges. Now, we don't talk about it as much on this channel, but the impact of lack of sleep, stress, and other things can impact hormones, sense of time, and your ability to adapt to situations. So if you are working more than 40 hours a week, now, I got no problem with you working 5 productive hours a week and the rest of the time you're doing something that's engaging in family. Well, that's the way it used to be. But practically, you're going to do about 40 hours a week. If you are not getting enough sleep, if you're not getting proper food, if you're not getting the emotional needs taken care of, then you will not have the cognitive power to fix the business area. So this advice is not popular, but it is powerful. I want you to immediately start looking for another job. If you're working more than 40 hours a week, if you don't feel appreciated, if you don't feel like you're able to have the lifestyle that you want, if you don't feel like your relationships are blossoming and getting better, if you feel like this job's impacting your health, if you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about someone who's not laying next to you in bed, and you're worried and frustrated, I want you to take the relationship view. Again, business relationships are for profit. Family and familial relationships are for prosperity. It's for your emotional needs. So if you've got to work 2 or 3 less hours a week so that you can sleep a little longer, it's going to give you an opportunity to observe your employer or your client or whoever you're getting paid by to see what their attitudes are. Now, again, this is not popular advice because and I got this advice from a mentor a long time ago, and I did not heed it regularly, and it's bit my ass more than a few times. But he said, if you're not out there looking for a new job every month, you won't know what it's like out there. Now, you'll have a perception that what it's like on the other side, just like, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but you won't know about the care and feeding or what's required to keep it green. And so if you're not out there looking for new opportunities, then you're not in a position to know whether the opportunity you have is good or not. If you're not getting proper sleep, proper nutrition, proper exercise, then you're not going to be in a cognitive ability to correct your situation. Now, there was a time that I started wearing the beard, and I started wearing the weird hair, and I started getting the natural clothes. If you guys don't know, I've taken a monistic approach of life, and I did step back from working the 80 hours a week. And this was probably 3 to 4 years ago. And the employer didn't have a problem with it. They didn't care how I looked. They didn't care how I dressed. They didn't care anything other than the performance that I could deliver. But things have changed because economically there's pressure. You get new managers and stuff like that, and then sometimes things change. Our political climate has changed in the last 4 years. And so, if you're not regularly looking for that next opportunity, whether it's internally or externally to your situation, if you're not regularly managing your day, it is your day. They can demand a lot of stuff of you, but you decide what you do and what you don't. If you have that fear and anxiety that you're going to lose your job if you don't obey, doing this one thing of simply taking an hour or two just to care for yourself. I put on my calendar a block of time that it's just scheduling. That's all it is. Okay, because remember, we talked about delegation. We talked about looking at the work we're doing, optimizing the work we're doing, increasing the value of the work we do for the organization, making sure that we can measure and justify that, making sure we stop doing work that's unproductive. If you've spent half your day watching YouTube, unless you're a content creator, even then, watching YouTube is not as good as producing. Again, we have a tenet in Inside Strategic Relations that it's better to be a producer than a consumer. If you've done this assessment and now your employer's pissed Because instead of putting in a 12-hour day, you're only putting in a 10-hour day, and you're taking those 2 hours and you're investing it in your family. And you go on a walk with your kids and you find out how their day's been, and now they realize they're like, oh, I got a dad, I got a mom, oh my gosh, I just hear this person waking up in the morning and I see them coming home late at night. I don't even know who. They're getting to know you, you're getting to know them. And then you get back to work and your employer's like, hey, look, we're under a crunch. We got some fires going on. We're going to need you to work this weekend. You can say, boop, because you've had an opportunity to find out that that's not a standard practice. That is very often the sign that the company's having problems, that the company is not respecting its employee. And it doesn't matter how many diversity and inclusion programs it has. It doesn't matter how inclusive it is in actuality. It doesn't matter the color of the people or the whatever, the pay rates are fair. None of that matters if they're killing you by working you to death. Okay? Now, we've talked about the specifics of those things and how that's kind of makes you feel good, but it's not actually doing anything. And we can debate that in the comments below if you like. I don't care. The engagement will be good for the videos. But my point being is that if you go from an 80-hour week to a 70-hour week and nothing happens, that's good. You got 10 hours back to spend with your family, to spend on your health, to invest in your knowledge, to recover from work, because we do know from the studies that our brain activity is impacted by work. Too many meetings back to back actually I don't want to say dumb downs, but it numbs the reaction, and you don't have enough time to process the results of the meeting, and they can all blur together, and you're not really that effective with the action items and such. Note taking helps there, and a couple other activities like getting breaks. That we do know that sitting in a chair all the time, I opened up this mentioning that I was doing a block of content for my newsletters and different kinds of video responses for things. If I don't get up after this video, then I would have sat in a chair for almost 2 hours, and that's not productive. So getting up and stretching between each thing, we do know that increases the blood flow, and that reduces the amount of weight you're going to gain around the waist and on the buttocks. Okay, so I don't mean to, I'm not a health expert, you can tell by looking at me, but I want to tell you that from the cognitive abilities and your critical thinking, if you don't recover some of your time to invest in the family life and the personal life and the health life and the nutrition life, then you will be a cog who has a heart attack at their desk. I worked in an environment, and it was an IT department, and it was a big center. We managed millions of servers all over the world. DNS, I'll just tell you, it was IBM Global Services. And then I had a contract with AT&T Global Services. They're actually in the same building in Raleigh. We had people who had kidney stones in the middle of the day curl up under their desk, and we were so conditioned to work around the clock because on call and 12-hour shifts, and we're just rocking it, and we're drinking our caffeine, and we're just, oh yeah, we're going to do this. Dudes would fall under their desk, kidney stones, screaming, and guess what? There was a corporate protocol for handling that. And we would just execute the protocol and get them gurneyed out and get right back to work. And we would hear people say, all right, all done here. Let's get back to work. Like we were slaves building the pyramids. And the pyramids weren't built by slaves, by the way. They just felt like slaves. But ultimately, long story short, if you recover some of your time and invest that time not in zoning out, because again, we have that brain fog. We have that high level of stress, and it feels good to watch the latest Game of Thrones or to watch whatever is the popular series at the time. And that's the bread and circus that the man feeds everybody. And I don't, there's generics like Illuminati and the man and stuff that we use to represent things. In your life, you need to identify who these people are. So in your company, if you cut from 80 hours to 70 hours and then your manager's freaking out, then there's something wrong with your group. Maybe they're understaffed, whatever. But again, because you're looking for other opportunities, if the freak out gets bad, you can go to a new organization and set new expectations. Because the company's used to you working 80 hours, used to you saving the day, putting out fires, being there when something needs to get done, and ultimately you're burned out. You just can't handle it. You just life's going bad, and then you break. You freak out, and then you're the guy then you're the guy or gal that they've been doing active shooter drills about. My point being is that if you recover 10 hours, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to blow up. It's not going to break down. Now, if you got fires on your plate each week, you need to prioritize that. So there are some skill building here. So you can take some of that time to work on the skills, to work on the schedule. Like I said, I took a chunk of time in the middle of the day where all I did was schedule. I wanted my next 2 to 3 weeks to be scheduled out. If I had a vacation coming up, I want to make sure I had proper coverage. I wanted to make sure that I could take a vacation and not get a phone call. Now, again, if you start doing this stuff and it pisses off your manager, because remember, I started doing this stuff 4 or 5 years ago, and it wasn't a big deal. But in the recent years, I took vacation. I had proper coverage. They said, well, are you going to take your cell phone? Or are you going to be out of town? No, I'm going to play farmer, and I'll be in the woods. That's it. I'm not going to be, there's no cell phone, there's no cell signal. If something breaks, here's who you call. They're going to have coverage for me because I'm going to cover for them when they're on holiday. See, if you're covering for your coworkers and working a couple extra hours, that's no big deal. That's building that relationship. But ultimately, if they want you to staycation and be on call, then that's not a vacation at all. You should get paid for that. Now, here's the thing. Some managers were like, it's your responsibility to make sure you have coverage so that when you go away, we don't even notice you're gone. You go refresh, you take some extra sleep, you spend some time with your family, you work on those personal relationships that all the money in the world isn't going to fix a personal relationship. Okay? If you, in the case of a wife at home example, and she feels like she's a slave, or the husband at home feels like he's a household slave, getting housekeepers and stuff isn't going to help anything other than giving them somebody to have sex with when you're at work. My point being, without being too crude, is the money isn't going to solve personal relationship problems. You need to be there emotionally, physically, and cognitively. And so taking recovering some of your time and reapplying it someplace else, because we all have the same 24 hours a day. If it harms your business relationship, the backstop is a new opportunity, because there's always somebody willing to hire the person who can get the job done. But a new opportunity will give you time to baseline at 40 hours. So a lot of my very best managers say right up front, I want a good solid 8-hour day. If something explodes and blows up, it doesn't mean it's a 10-hour day. It means that something's going to have to get adjusted, and then we're gonna work on that schedule. We might pull the overseas team in to do some work. We might get a contractor to cover something. So, for example, when people go away for maternity leave, that shouldn't be the responsibility of the existing workers. A lot of good companies will hire a contractor to cover maternity leave. A bad company will spread that work around. I covered for 2 people on maternity leave. I'm not complaining because they're good people, and that's a good thing to be doing for your family and building up the relationship and the attachment during early childhood development. But the company didn't get contractors. I made the recommendation to get contractors. I segmented the work out so contractors could do some of the work. The company didn't respond. But I didn't have the cognitive ability at the time because of the frustrations and the stress to say, well, if they're not going to fix it, I'll just go work someplace else. A lot of my coworkers did, but I didn't do it. So I'm trying to help you with my learn from my experience rather than experience the discomfort yourself. Now, you've gone from 80 hours to 70 hours. First off, you need to make sure you're legitimately working for 80 hours, because if you're waiting on stuff, if you're finding there's a lot of free time because there's gaps, then you want to look at your schedule, how you can fill those gaps. So when you work from home, let's say you have, and I can only share my experience and what folks have shared with me from their own personal stories. But let's say in the morning you're working with a team in Ireland, and you're located on the East Coast of the United States. And then in the afternoon, you're working with people in California. And so you have a 7 a.m. meeting and you have a 7 p.m. meeting. It is your responsibility to step away from your computer in the block in the middle and run some errands, get some stuff done, follow up on correspondence not related to work, to clock out. So there are many people that claim they work an 80-hour week, but no, they're 80 hours at the office. They're not actually working for 80 hours. So in some environments, corporate environments, you can take that time and go down and exercise because they'll have a gym nearby. You can go take an off-site meeting or something. But do be aware of the perception of you not working. So there's a communications element in here. Make sure your supervisor knows, whether you're an independent professional, a knowledge worker, whatever. Let your team lead know, let your tech lead know, let your supervisor know, let somebody know that you are adjusting your schedule so that you can maintain, and you have to describe it as a benefit to them, the cognitive and emotional skills necessary. Now, it's okay if you say, hey, I've been thinking about this big challenge we're having, and instead of doing it at my desk, I'm going to go down to the gym and do a couple laps and see what I can come up with. Because you're going to come back refreshed and renewed. You're giving them an excuse to take a break, because a lot of these managers aren't doing this on purpose. They're overwhelmed and they don't have the skill set that you have, and they're not a subscriber of Inside Strategic Relations to get these insights and tips that I hope I'm delivering. Because if I can help you with lessons learned from my experience, then maybe my experience is worthwhile. I don't like having big medical bills and stuff like that, but ultimately, if I can deliver value to you, we can recover that, and we can make it useful, because you can learn from my expensive experience. But do you see the point I'm making? Your schedule is yours. They decide how much they pay you. You decide how much you work. Now, you can do this in such a way that you're not going to work hard. It's not my job. I'm not going to work harder. But again, there's people like me, risk management professionals, business process engineers, that are looking at how to eliminate everybody. If they could have an artificial intelligent computer robot system do the work, and it was cost effective, meaning the robot costs less than the dollars per hour it's producing, everybody will be unemployed. So there's a juxtaposition of increasing the value of your time while efficiently delegating services so that you can get the work that needs to be done taken care of. Anytime there's work that does not need to get done, don't do it. If the work has zero impact for not getting done, don't do it. If it needs to be done but you don't need to do it, have somebody else do it. I think that was President Eisenhower had a grid, and we talk about that in other programs. But do you see where I'm coming from here? If your workplace gets pissed because you reduced from 80 hours, you cut 10% of your time and reinvested it in improving you as a person, because that's really all you're selling here, and the company gets pissed off, then you now know that you should take 20% of your time looking for another job and keep that 10% time to refresh yourself so that you'll be mentally and physically able to be a valuable employee. So, I'm not giving legal advice here, but a lot of companies will work you far longer than they should. It's not your fault. It's basically because the company is understaffed or there's other market conditions. You need to come up with a breakthrough, communicate the breakthrough, make sure you're getting maximum value out of their investment in you, and then ultimately you're bringing up a team of value so that you're the workplace worth going to work for. And part of that is a 40-hour week. And I know companies will tell you, we got unlimited vacation. We've got breakfast, lunch, and dinner served for you. We've got a gym at the office. But they also hire engineers to make sure you never use all that stuff. And again, I'm a risk management professional. I do operational risk. When we do an RCSA, we look at business process design. We look at staffing. So there's a RACI. And then somebody's looking at the costs associated with that. Do we really need a director doing this work? No. Could it be done by an officer? Yes. Great. Add it to the officers list. We just saved a certain amount of money. I've saved, and then the teams I've worked on have saved companies billions of dollars. Okay. We've figured out, so I won't name the company, but we figured out that certain laws are out of scope because the company doesn't do anything. It's customary to have controls for this particular law, but this company, we could evidence that it doesn't actually do anything in that area, so the controls would never get used. So we just cut out the whole process of even using the controls by simply having a rationale statement tied to not use. So compliance recommended a control. It was that a control was necessary for this particular law, rule, regulation, or this particular business requirement, and this department could rationale why they don't even. It's not applicable, and that stopped all of the control development, process improvement, all the stuff that's tied to that activity. Where other businesses that don't do anything with that particular law just accepted it and they spent all this extra time. So I'm not sure if I'm getting across to you because I can't see the people in the audience right now, but do you understand? You control the schedule, they control the pay. You need to provide maximum value in the schedule, and that's how you justify the maximum pay. The pay will not increase after you're hired. It'll be 1 or 2%, even if inflation's 4 to 8%. And so by looking for another job, and again, I kick myself in the butt every time I don't do this. My previous mentors have recommended this. Anytime the business condition changes where they're upset because instead of working 60 hours, you're only working 50 hours, and keep track of your time. You'll be shocked how many hours you're there at the office or tied to a computer associated with work. If you cut back a little bit and they're mad, your health, your emotions, your mental state is more important for the work. However, the reason I mentioned minimum wage before is there's one attitude difference that makes somebody a minimum wage worker versus a top dollar high income professional. And that's the attitude. I have ran into people making $60, $70 an hour whose attitude was, it's not my job. And they would be in their desk doing something that's not work related. All you're doing there is giving the company excuses to let you go. Because in the company's mind, you should be doing 90 hours of productive work in a 40-hour period and not mess the records up so that they don't get a EEOC complaint or they don't get in trouble with OSHA. Their mindset is different because for every dollar they spend, they want a multiple return. So if you're only producing $100 an hour work, it's hard to justify $50 an hour in pay. But they can get to the $50 an hour in pay by getting more hours out of you. I don't know if that makes sense, but you might be making $80 an hour for 2,080 hours a year, but if they can get 4,160 hours a year, then they've cut your $40 hour in wage, your $80 an hour in wage into $40. Now, if you're doing $100 an hour work and getting paid $40 because you spread that out over time, then they have a better spread. And believe me, if you're in the finance department, if you're in human resources, if you're in business process, you know they do these measures. You know anybody over $100,000, if you've ever gotten one of those highly compensated employee letters that explains how you don't get to qualify for matching funds or you don't get to qualify to other stuff because you make too much money, you know the pressure you're up against. It's the same pressure that people get when they don't have enough income. The difference is you don't have enough time. So they don't have enough income to have the lifestyle they desire. You don't have enough time to have the lifestyle you desire. So very often we make dumb spending mistakes. I'm like, oh. Anyway, I know I'm getting a little weird, but to wrap it up, all the money in the world won't fix family problems. The hours you spend in counseling on top of the hours you're spending at work isn't going to make things better. It might give you the trigger to take action, but the plan is, number one, manage your schedule to produce the greatest amount of value for that organization. That is the only justification to keep you around. Number two, make sure that your work time is productive and you're not spending a lot of time at work that would be better invested at home. So look at your overall schedule and then quality of home schedule, value of work schedule. Next, always be looking for the next opportunity, whether it's internally or externally. Now, this opportunity could be an optimization that allows work to be done by a lower paid worker. So it's creating new jobs so that there's a feeding of new people who can replace you in the future. There's nothing wrong with getting replaced in a workplace. Nothing wrong with that, as long as you're able to continue to grow on that ladder of achievement. Also, making sure your mindset is straight so that you're saving reserve funds, because you might be working 80 hours a week. You might have worked through COVID. You might have worked through difficult situations. You might have saved the company all kinds of money, and then for some reason it has nothing to do with you. You're now laid off. Okay, Amazon just let go 18,000 people. Goldman Sachs, all these companies, they're laying off people. It's just going to happen. Maybe they overhired in the past. Maybe they're doing work that doesn't matter. Again, always be looking for that next opportunity. Learn to get a network of recruiters. We talk about that in another program. Get a network of your business contacts. I have a challenge. I don't invest in my business networking as good as I should. And so maybe I should take a few hours each week to focus on that. But the reduction in time spent at the office, those hours are still there. It's the same 24 hours. You have to reinvest those hours into what matters. I'm recommending half of that time be invested in your career, half of the time be invested in your family. Okay? Don't spend the 2 hours at the bar bitching about your job. Don't spend it in front of the next video on YouTube or on Amazon Prime or talking about the Hulu series or whatever political drama there is. Be a producer, not a consumer. That's what I want to leave you with. I'm Justin Hitt with Inside Strategic Relations, and I'm going to do exactly what I said I was going to do. As soon as this video is done, it doesn't get uploaded anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It's going to sit on my iPad, and I'm going to go take a walk. I'm going to go clean up some stuff around the house or something. I'm going to go do something that is the opposite of what we've been doing here, which is sitting. And I'm going to probably blow my nose because my sinuses are going crazy. But if you have any questions about what I've covered here today in this special program, ask them below. If this is posted on YouTube, Rumble, or any of those platforms, ask below. But you can also visit www.insidestrategicrelations.com. Join our free email newsletter or contact me through the contact page to ask your question. I welcome your questions. It informs me about the content we should deliver. What you'll find there is tools and resources for knowledge workers and professionals who are interested in improving their cognitive abilities in order to improve their lifestyle, their influence in the workplace, and transform business relationships into profits. Now, as we've discussed in this program today, your mental state and your emotional state is necessary to backstop those things so that you can tolerate the challenges that happen with inflation, political, and all that other stuff. But you'll find a number of free resources there, as well as some paid resources that I hope you'll take a chance to look at. But it doesn't cost you anything to ask questions, whether you do it in the comments below or you do it on the website at www.insidestrategicrelations.com. I've been Justin Hitt. I'm here to help you transform business relationships into profits, and we do that through systems and methods that are, I just gave you an example, so thanks for watching. I'm going to go take a walk now. Bye-bye.